Welcome to Madman. That's Andy.
And this is Pim.
And this is the very first episode and start of season 2.
Season 2. We missed it. We got continued.
Yeah, exactly. But it kind of feels like a next step from, of course, going on from season 1 to season 2. But we started even before that a little bit, right?
Well, the pilot, you were a customer of ours.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun, right? And we did it not in person. We did it over Zoom, I think it might have been.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, I think that episode might still be online. And now that this is like completely random, but I just had this memory that I might have been wearing the same jacket in that pilot episode.
Circle.
We will have to double check that. But yeah full circle.
Now we have much bigger budgets and a full wardrobe assistants.
Better whiskey.
Better whiskey. Cheers, by the way.
Cheers. Here's to season 2.
Season 2. So what are we talking about today, Pim?
We are going to talk about a bunch of different topics, but what we're going to start with is misidentifying your champion for an EB as one and the same person.
It is actually a question we get more commonly than what we feel we should get. And I think what we put that down to is not so much that it's happening more, that somehow the champion and economic buyer personas are merging or becoming closer together, but because people are misunderstanding, misidentifying either the champion or the economic buyer. I think more commonly what's happening, if I'm honest, I think people are misidentifying their champion as an economic buyer. And it's probably the case that they're starting too low. So they probably have a coach that they're calling their champion, and they're looking to their coach to introduce them to what they're thinking is the economic buyer, but what actually is happening is that is going to be the true champion.
Yeah. And
so they get to that person, and all of a sudden they've classed them as the economic buyer all along, but then they realize actually this person's more like a champion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then they get into this conundrum.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing for me is that we see this both with customers, but I have seen it with our own team as well, right? And the tricky bit is that you either end up winning the deal and then you realize, hey, actually my proposed EB was my champion all along, and there was this different individual within the organization, like a CFO, for example, that ended up being the economic buyer. And if you win it, it feels like it doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah.
But then if you lose the opportunity and you come to that insight after the fact, like it's an opportunity missed, right? And you should have been more proactive about it. And so I think that whenever someone says like, hey, my champion and the economic buyer are the same person, like the first thing I think, are you sure? Like, I don't think that that's the case. And then if you start peeling back some layers of that situation, you typically find that they're not, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the point you make there, I want to just go back to of this scenario where you're saying, if we won the deal, then it's okay. And we reflect and we think, actually, maybe we were wrong about that. But you think actually the way that everybody sees that is that was okay because we won the deal. And it's only a problem if you lost the deal, which is actually incorrect, because the standard that we should all hold ourselves to, the heights, the level of quality that we should hold ourselves to, is that not just that success is winning and failure is losing.
Yeah.
We should be holding ourselves to the success that if we're qualifying correctly, then we shouldn't really lose deals. We should qualify out of deals. And so the definition of success is not did we win or lose. The definition of success is did we win for as much value as we could have done as quickly as possible. And the main factor that's going to drive success towards higher deal sizes, won faster, is economic buyer support. The not having the economic buyer, so when you're not engaged with the economic buyer, when the deal gets to that stage of procurement, when it gets to the stage of negotiation and legal and all those things that slow the deal down and start to cut away at the value and the deal size, it's the economic buyer that has the most power to hold that.
Yeah.
So if you're truly engaged with the true economic buyer, then you are going to be in the best position to defend your value, and you're going to have that executive support to accelerate your deal towards closure. So the idea of this, hey, well, turns out we got it wrong. That person wasn't actually the economic buyer. It was somebody else we didn't get to. But hey, it doesn't matter because we still won the deal. Probably not as good as situations you think it is. It probably took you longer to close, and you probably got beaten up by procurement because you didn't have that executive support behind you.
So if you put that against the timeline of a sales cycle, that's like, the deal up until the point of closure going into value delivery, right? So all of that is true for that, but it also extends in the further customer life cycle, because when you have that, it might be the first deal, it might be second, doesn't really matter, but typically your partnership with that customer doesn't end there, right? And so if you think about the customer stage within that customer life cycle, the full customer life cycle, it's not like the EB persona, whoever that person is disappearing from the face of the earth and you never need them again. So if you don't have them already, you're also not set up really well to build like a very fruitful, successful, long-lasting relationship with that customer.
For sure, yeah. There are some instances where I do believe this can happen, and I want to make the point, they are not common. It can definitely happen with smaller organizations where, you're dealing with maybe the owner of the business or somebody very senior at a business who, just by nature of the size of the company, the person who is responsible for purchasing the solution is also very senior and therefore the economic buyer. That can happen.
Yeah.
It can perhaps happen if there's some sort of strange circumstances. We've had situations in the past where we've certainly been championed by people. I think of one organization of, a terrific CEO and founder who certainly championed MEDDICC into their organization.
Yeah.
But here's the point I want to make. Even if we look at that person and say, well, they're the CEO and founder of this, this public company that's worth billions of dollars, and nobody in the organization wants MEDDICC in more than them. That's great. And they're certainly a champion. They've got power and influence. Yeah. Sure. It's their company, right? They founded it. They have a vested interest because they care about the success of their company and they see MEDDICC as helping them. They're certainly selling internally because they got their CMO on the call, the CRO on the call.
Yeah.
They were a champion. And they're almost certainly the economic buyer because they are the CEO. But this is where the challenge comes in, where people do try and sort of merge the two. You need a champion in your deal because you need that person to be pulling people together, wrangling with procurement, getting the response back from legal, all those things, and 100 other things. And the CEO of a public company or the CEO of any company or the economic buyer persona by nature is not the person you want to be relying on to do those things for you.
Yeah.
So even if you do have this sort of strange, unlikely, but quite good scenario where the economic buyer is championing you, you want to find somebody else to act as the champion, like the delegate champion almost, so they can run the field, do all the things you want them to do, because otherwise you're going to get yourself in some serious sort of challenges from a decision process and a paper process perspective of trying to move the deal forward when you're relying on someone that's got things that are going to be arguably more important every single minute of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great example. Perhaps it's useful to get into some questions around like, hey, what are questions that we can ask when we're in an evaluation with a prospect? We're working with our, say, proposed champion, right? In terms of making sure that we don't end up in a situation where we merge those two and later on it backfires, right?
Yeah, for sure. They're classic kind of decision process questions for me. We can of course ask our contact who we are assuming is at least a champion.
Yeah.
And the question is, are there any economic buyer? We can ask them, the last time he purchased a solution like this, which we know is a great question to uncover that foresight rather than, just asking about the process itself. But it's simple questions. Who's going to sign?
Yeah.
Who, even questions to kind of put the your champion as it is, not on the spot, but to kind of to sort of provoke thought from them and response from them. So asking them about the CFO, asking them about, is the CFO interested in this? Is the CFO aware?
What's their view? Are they aware? Yeah, absolutely.
The classic of like, who's likely, not saying it's going to happen, but if this was to be stopped, who would that be? Who's the person that could stop this and why? What have you seen before? What things?
Yeah.
And you don't have to ask the questions as bluntly as that. You can ask the question from a perspective of, if they are a true champion, they have a vested interest, you have a mutual success. Mm-hmm. So you should have a compelling event that you're working towards. You should both sort of see this event on the horizon of becoming partnered as a mutual win.
Yeah.
So you can ask from the context of, in our pursuit of our mutual goal to become partnered, what's like what are some things that go wrong? Who's a person that could be a risk to this? Who's a person that it'd be better for us to be proactive to engage with, just in case that's, the last thing you want is for someone to feel like they've not been included. And so finding those questions out is going to help you uncover, risk to your decision process, but also really start to feel around of who else could be the economic buyer.
Yeah, so this goes back to getting ahead of things, right? So it's from a stakeholder perspective, and then it goes back to the point that you were making at the beginning of this episode, keeping the velocity in your deal by not, necessarily merging the persona of a champion and an EB.
Yeah.
And also the process elements, like how often do we see it happen where a deal slips because of like the paper process wasn't understood and wasn't worked on proactively early on in the cycle, right? So there's definitely a lot in these very simple questions and making sure that you ask them at the right time as you are building your champion and the prospective partnership that you have at that point into the potential success it can be.
Exactly. The last thing I'll say on this is every organization should be doing deal reviews. No question about it. You should be running at least weekly deal reviews with your sales team.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, the thing is like whatever situation you end up in, if you feel like, hey, my champion here is also the EB, like chances are like your colleagues, the people around you, the ones that end up in similar situations every single day have seen it before, right? So surely there's best practice, there's examples of how we've overcome it before, and you can tap into the mind share, the power of the team to uncover the right actionable items to do in that deal.
For sure. Yeah. So to summarize, first things first, if you are pondering whether your champion, you're feeling, actually, I think my champion is also the economic buyer. First things first.
Typically not the case.
So you've got some work to do. You've got some thinking to do. You've got some investigation to do. Look deeper into it. Second thing, if there is this strange scenario where actually by some sort of fluke or some strange circumstances, the true economic buyer is also acting as a champion, it is a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah.
But you're going to have to find somebody else to act as a champion, to do that legwork, to help you make progress, because economic buyers, by definition, are not going to have the bandwidth.
So you're still separating them.
You still have to separate them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can even say to your economic buyer, if they are truly economic buyers, like, is there someone close to you who we can work with to work with on some of the more logistical things? If you don't want to talk about, getting the deal signed, you can talk about, and put, that kind of spin on it.
Yeah, and then there's the obvious questions, right? Like, who can stop this? It's like, how has this worked for you before?
Yep.
And what's the point of view from like a CFO and CEO kind of perspective? Are they aware?
Yeah. And the last point I make in summary, I think, is a really good one, which is it's never too late to figure this out. I mean, we had a situation where we were toward, the late throes of closing a deal, and we realized that you and I realized that the economic buyer we thought, who was actually, public cloud company, large company, COO and founder of that company.
Been there for years.
Was not the economic buyer. It was the CFO.
Yeah.
And the reason why we found that out, and this is something we should definitely have mentioned earlier, is that person started talking about, well, what I need from you to get this past this person, which was the CFO, is these things. And it's like that, that was an alarm that went off.
Yeah.
Where we should be saying, oh, okay, that's obvious, but we didn't do a good enough job to have identified that earlier on, because let's be honest, we got a bit like, let's coin a term, we got a bit C-level drunk. We were like, oh, we're talking to a founder. They're also a COO. They're, our champion had talked up our introduction to this person, all the signs of that person being an economic buyer. And like I said, you should not settle. You should always be considering, has this, if in a lot of ways, if you've done a good job as a salesperson, the deal size got bigger, chances are you could push the deal out of the control of your current economic buyer into a more senior economic buyer's hands, which is a good thing. You can't rest on your laurels.
And there's something in there where you approach it from a mindset of like, by default, I'm going to treat the CFO as the EB unless proven different.
Yeah.
right?
The worst that can happen.
Yeah, exactly. What's the worst thing that can happen? And I think now more than ever, you see CFO scrutiny along like lower investments than ever before, right? So it's never gonna hurt you if from a sales and a GTM perspective.
Sounds like that should be a future episode.
I agree. So with that, I will say, cheers, Andy.
Cheers, Ben.
Till next time. And don't forget to like and subscribe to all of your on all of your favorite platforms for this podcast to catch every single episode going forward.